How's it going, everybody? This is Cameron White with White Light Astrology, giving you guys your August 2019 horoscope for Pisces, Sun, and Rising. Thank you guys so much for being here and liking and sharing and commenting and subscribing. I love and appreciate every single one of you guys. We are ending July and starting August off with the new moon in Leo and Mercury finally stationing direct. Now, at this time, we do have the Sun, Mars, and Venus all in Leo, all in your 6th house, so that's been charging up your day-to-day routine, your activities, your schedule, being busy. This new moon in Leo is giving us an opportunity to really recharge our batteries and see what's worth doing what. This is Leo, where we're talking about worth, identity, authenticity, integrity. And this new moon in your 6th house is kind of helping you recalibrate what's more important in your schedule and what deserves more time for what. Now, on August 1st, we are having Mercury finally stationed direct, and when Mercury was retrograde in your 6th house, this was maybe causing some problems with your routine or with your schedule or with your employer or whatever it was. And as it went back into your 5th house of Cancer, it got to focus more on what it wanted and what was more of necessity. Now that Mercury stations direct in Cancer, this is kind of being a little bit more clear and realizing, what do you want? Mercury is the planet of communication and messages and our ideas and our mindset. And it's in the sign of Cancer, where it focuses on empathy and sympathy, trust, sentimental things and, protection. And this is in your 5th house of love and sex and children and art and music and creativity. And the 5th house is kind of like an extension of the 1st house. It's like, what makes you unique and what do you want? What makes you cool? And as Mercury goes direct in Cancer, I think this is about having the right mindset of knowing what you want by knowing what matters, knowing what is of necessity, knowing what needs to be protected. And then about 10 days later, on August 11th, that is when we have Mercury go back into Leo. Now, it still is in shadow, where we're still dealing with all this Mercury retrograde stuff, but as Mercury goes back into Leo, the planet of communication, ideas, and messages, wants to focus more on saying things, from the heart, saying things, courageously and boldly. But my biggest suggestion is, while Mercury's still in Leo and in shadow, don't get yourself into trouble like you might have earlier, where Mercury conjoining Mars going retrograde could have said things out loud that maybe didn't need to be said out loud. And so while Mercury's going back into Leo, I think this is about having the right mindset of knowing what to say and when to say it, knowing when it's good to speak up and when you need to roar, and knowing maybe I shouldn't waste my time and my voice on this. Then also on August 11th, we have Jupiter finally stationing direct, and this is super positive for you guys, because as Jupiter's been in your 10th house of career, how people see you, the public eye, Jupiter was first, moving forward, kind of clearing out some space, making some room for new things to happen. Then Jupiter went retrograde, and it was kind of like, having you ask philosophical, deep questions of, where are you going with your career? What do you want to do with this? What does this all mean? And as Jupiter finally goes direct and starts to move forward, this is when opportunities will start to be more presented to you within the terms of your career. And you may start finding abundance kind of falling into your lap within the terms of that, especially while everything's in Leo in your 6th house and you're kicking ass and you're working hard, and while Jupiter's trining all of this stuff, kind of just expanding your whole career world. Then on August 14th, that is when Venus conjoins the Sun in Leo. And this is important because at this time, Venus is on the other side of the Sun. She's as far away as she's going to get. Venus is the planet of love and value and relationships. And she's wanting you to connect to things, indulge in whatnot. And she's in the sign of Leo, where she values and she really wants to be seen, be put in the spotlight, be authentic, have some identity there. And while Venus conjoins the Sun, this is refreshing Venus's energy, kind of getting purified by fire and kind of stabilizing Venus's beliefs about itself. Now, this is happening in your 6th house of your work, of day-to-day habits, your routine, and your health, and your employment. And as Venus conjoins the Sun here, I think this is about embracing and seeing where your value lies within your schedule, and where you can put more attention and more light and focus on those things that actually do bring you value, that do put you in the spotlight, that do make you feel worth something. Then on August 15th, we have the full moon in Aquarius. And this is important because while Sun, Mars, Venus, now Mercury, we just got off this, the new moon in Leo, all in your 6th house, you've been working, you've been busy. The 6th house is also known for problems, so you can be seeing things kind of coming up for you that have been problematic. The full moon is lighting up an axis. The moon lights up what we don't always see. And this full moon is happening in Aquarius. This is a Saturn ruled sign where it's about, rigidity, structure, stabilization. But the sign of Aquarius is an air sign where it has to do more with logic and spirit and understanding of. But this is happening in your 12th house of repressed and unacknowledged parts of yourself, hidden things that you weren't aware of before. And so I think that this full moon is kind of like highlighting, hey, you might be seeing problems with your routine or with your schedule, but this full moon's kind of like, hey, let me show you something that maybe you weren't paying attention to, that you might have repressed or just haven't even acknowledged, something that you didn't even see before, brought to light to you so you can take that energy back into your schedule and fix that. But also on August 15th, that is when Mercury finally leaves its shadow and can start to tread new territory in Leo. So now that Mercury's out of shadow at this time and moving forward, Mercury can speak more with a confident voice, being more confident and fluent with its actions and its decisions. Mercury is our mindset, it is our train of thought, and while it's in Leo, it's wanting to do things big, bright, and bold. And this is in your 6th house where you may be taking on a lot of work right now. But now that Mercury is out of shadow, it's about taking things one step at a time and taking all of the things that you can actually handle and not just taking it all in just because you think you can. Then on August 18th, that is when Mars moves into Virgo. Now, Mars is the planet of our action, our drive, our intentions, and our how and our why we're doing things. Mars is going into the mutable earth sign of Virgo, which is ruled by Mercury. And this is, Virgo's all about details, specifics, the right phrasing and the right words for specific situations. Mars in Virgo is focusing on the details, taking action on the smaller things that it can get done while it can get done. But the important thing to note is that Mars is a malefic planet. Mars is, cause frustrations. It causes things to heat up. It severs, it cuts, it stings, it pierces. And while Mars is in Virgo, while you may have the energy to go for specific things and do those things, it's those same smaller menial things that could also bring you frustration and some anger and can cause some problems. Now, Mars is going into your 7th house of relationships. It is about other people at this time. And this is both romantic relationships, personal relationships, professional, platonic, whatever. And as Mars goes through your 7th house, this may not be you getting frustrated, but maybe people that are around you, individuals that you surround yourself with or interact with, being maybe more hostile, being maybe a little bit more angry or frustrated than normal. But then on August 21st, that is when Venus enters Virgo, and this is going to change the flavor a lot because Venus is the planet, of course, of love and value, relationships. She wants to have a good time. She's going into her sign of fall, which means she's not having a good time. Venus wants to have fun, but Mercury stuff, Virgo stuff is focused on detail. It's task focused, not relationship focused. And so while Venus goes into Virgo, this is kind of like Venus, being like, I want to have fun, I want to express myself, I want to find value here, but it's got to be this way, and it's got to be specific, and it's got to be detailed, which can be overwhelming, and it can be gunky and not fun. But while Venus goes into your 7th house of relationships, I think that this is bringing more value and harmony within one-on-one relationships for you. But it's about finding the specifics and being able to see what needs to be fixed, seeing what needs to be healed, seeing what needs to be given care and given value. And that's where it's going to start to be a little bit more fun. And on August 23rd, that's when the sun goes into Virgo and the light then goes away from what you're doing every day and just focuses on relationships. As the sun goes into Virgo and goes into your 7th house, this is where the light is, again, more focused on relationships, bringing more attention and, vitality to one-on-one individual relationships for you guys. But then on August 24th, the next day, that's when we have Venus conjoining Mars. And I bring this up because while Mars is in Virgo, wanting to attend to all these tasks, look through the specifics, read every single letter and word in the paper, Mars can get frustrated and irritated and, just pinpoint focused on things. And Venus isn't having not saying that Mars isn't having a good time. Mars kind of likes Virgo. Venus isn't having a good time, but while Venus is conjoining Mars, Venus is like, hey, if you're going to focus on all these tasks and be busy, and if for you this could be with relationships, this could be, dealing with issues and miscommunications or problems within the context of relationships for you guys, or maybe someone's mad at you. Venus conjoining Mars is like, hey, if you're going to focus on these tiny things, learn something from it. find the value in it. Enjoy it as much as you can. I've been saying this in a couple other horoscopes, but it's like, if you want to work on something and build something, you're not just going to get there overnight. You're not just going to do a 180 overnight. You have to hit that 180 by going 1 degree at a time. And Venus conjoining Mars and Virgo is like, if you're going to be focusing on every single degree, make sure you learn something from there. Make sure you find some value, and maybe something will get fixed. Maybe you'll find, joy and beauty in those small moments. Then on August 29th, that is when we have Mercury going into Virgo, and this gets things a lot more clear and a lot more specific, a lot easier to see and understand. Mercury, the planet of our communication, ideas, our mindset, how we speak, how we're doing things, how we're organizing things, is going into its home sign where it can actually do a good job at what it needs to do. And while you have the Sun and Venus and Mars all in Virgo, this can be a lot of energy pulled into the area of relationships, and it can be a little overwhelming and frustrating, and you can feel like there's a lot on your plate. Mercury coming into the picture is kind of helping you, organize those tasks and be more effective and efficient with the smaller things, having a better line of communication and saying the specific things that you not necessarily need to say, but what has to be said. Like Mercury and Virgo is kind of like, having the perfect response for the perfect question. And so while Mercury goes through your 7th house, this is a time of having a better line of communication with relationships. This is about being specific. This is about pinpointing things. And then on August 30th, we end the month with the new moon in Virgo. And at this time, we're going to be having, again, Sun, Moon, Venus, Mercury, Mars, all of the personal planets in your 7th house of relationships. So there is a big pull and a big focus on relationships for you guys by the time we get to the end of this month. And I think this new moon in Virgo is about it's kind of like getting all the numbers, crunching all of the numbers, and then finally making a decision on what numbers mean what. Good news is that all of this is trining Uranus, trining Saturn, so there's a lot of constructive energy going on here for you guys. But this new moon in Virgo is kind of like, hey, out of all of these details, out of all of these things that you've learned, all of the stuff that's coming up, what do you want to work on? What's worth working on? And what's worth actually giving your mind and attention to? So with that being said, thank you guys so much for being here and liking and sharing and commenting and subscribing. I love and appreciate every single one of you guys, and I'll be seeing you next month.